everyone else, also got affected. The impact has been so considerable that the mental health of everybody got affected, and so also our patients. So depression, I think, was everybody has seen. But even the other disorders, disorders which we think are biological, but they also have been colored by this pandemic. So what we are going to do today is discuss these disorders. So I thank again BPS and ma'am, and over to you, madam.
I think it's a real happy moment for me to be here. COVID times, pandemic times, full of stress, anxiety, fear, sadness, loneliness, basically uncertainty, lot of financial problems. And I think the country has seen, especially this country has seen the bigger moments of people leaving the cities, going back to their villages, again coming back, and the huge chaos was happening. Of course, pandemic in a given situation is chaotic, is more traumatic, and it's not just COVID pandemic. What is we are expecting over the time is mental health pandemic. Already we started facing it. We have seen quite a few suicides. We are hearing about it. And next 10 years, perhaps will be mental health pandemic followed by COVID pandemic, which may stop maybe by next year or with the vaccine taking up. So this is the most relevant topic, and it's very nice to see from the platform where it is being seen patients and being experienced by the resident doctors and the clinical team there. So we are happy to go through this particular event of clinical meeting, and let us see how it proceeds. So may I request Dr. Kranti Kadam, additional professor from psychiatric department, to go ahead with the introduction.
Good afternoon to one and all. First of all, thank you, Parker Madam, respected chairperson, colleagues, students, and friends. Distress minds in COVID times. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic has resulted into an increased prevalence of mental health problems among general population, so much so that it almost looked like psychiatric epidemic together with COVID-19 pandemic. Uncertainties in the form of about the spread of the infection, about the symptomatology, like common symptoms, unusual symptoms, prevention, and management of COVID-19 pandemic, they have led to insecurities among people, and which have caused major stressors, which undoubtedly have contributed to widespread emotional distress and increased risk for psychiatric illnesses. Public health emergencies always affect health, safety, and well-being of both individuals as well as communities. These effects may translate into a range of emotional reactions and unhealthy behaviors. COVID-19 pandemic was the mental health impact due to COVID-19 pandemic was seen across all the populations, but it was commonly affected the population which was more of high risk groups, like the elderly population, young and adolescent population, as well as population with compromised immunity. COVID-19 pandemic always has it has alarming implications for individual and the collective health and emotional and social functioning of the people. Chronic psychological distress, as we all know, increases the risk of developing physical and mental health problems. Physical problems are most of the times are evident, but mental health conditions go unnoticed most of the times. As we all know, and we are going through the pandemic and we are dealing with it effectively. So adjusting to new normal is difficult for us, it is challenging for us, and it is all the more challenging for vulnerable population. So as mental health professionals, as healthcare providers, we have a very important role in monitoring psychosocial needs and delivering psychosocial support to our patients. Thank you for patient listening. To throw more light on this topic, I invite Dr. Manmeet to present a review of literature.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Dr. Manmeet Kaur, second year psychiatry resident. I'll be presenting the review of literature on impact of COVID-19 on psychological well-being. I will be presenting in the following headings: history, trend in current pandemic, psychiatric manifestations, type of stressors, variations in pre-COVID and post-COVID presentations, at-risk groups, impact on healthcare workers, and impact over children and adolescents. Pandemics are known to affect the mental health of general population and various at-risk groups like healthcare workers, students, and people with chronic medical diseases. Previous studies on several pandemics such as HIV/AIDS, Spanish flu, and epidemics such as SARS, Ebola virus, and Zika virus had underlying psychological consequences on both infected and non-infected community. Hence, the sudden outbreak of new and unknown virus and measures adopted to decrease its spread has strong impact on quality of life and population psychological well-being. Manifestations include depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and even increased suicidal tendencies. The possible reasons include fear of infection, stigma of those infected, pressure on healthcare system, financial pressures, unemployment, social isolation, worsening of substance use, and media alarmism. During HIV pandemic too, the psychological reactions were observed like anxiety and phobia over contracting AIDS. AIDS phobia presented as hypochondriasis with phobic features and avoidance of situations associated with perceived risk of infection. It was also associated with guilt over sexual behavior triggered by media publicity on AIDS. Public responses to pandemics are changed since the bubonic plague pandemic, which occurred in 14th century. Disbelief of disease presence, misinformation, unclear public communication, disregard for government proclamations, and poor personal risk assessments were and are still common. During that time also, physicians were insulted on streets for warning people about arrival of pandemic. Today, media touting COVID-19 conspiracy theories are amplified by prominent voices. The novel coronavirus disease 2019 caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus has become a pandemic with growing number of cases globally. With rapid spread of COVID-19, global health systems are experiencing critical challenges in preventing infection, identifying and managing COVID-19 cases, and ensuring effective strategies to protect public health. These challenges, although primarily emerging from an infectious disease with physical health consequences, have affected mental health and well-being profoundly. People around the world are grappled with fear and worry about personal safety and a lack of effective vaccine or treatment. Adverse socioeconomic consequences like unemployment and lack of access to necessary commodities resulting from quarantine and lockdown measures in different contexts. These issues have multiple impact on mental health across populations. The disruption of a normal life as a result of government-imposed lockdown or stay-home orders have significantly impacted mental health of affected individuals. A recent umbrella review of mental health outcomes of quarantine and similar preventive strategies has found that depression, anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep problems, panic, stigmatization, lack of self-control, substance use disorder are highly prevalent among individuals impacted with physical isolation. Although destruction of everyday life and social networks are necessary to contain the virus, loneliness and social isolation can worsen the stressful air circumstances and have deleterious effects on mental health. Another rapid review suggested that stresses like prolonged quarantine, Fear of infection, frustration, boredom, inadequate supplies, inadequate information, financial loss have resulted in long-lasting stress, confusion, and anger in mass population. As we compare Spanish flu and COVID-19, a question arises, is there a similar pattern of psychological health problems? Comparing the past records and admission books of 1917 and 18 with present situation, there has been a dip in emergency psychiatric admission. The reduced emergency utilization was due to fear of contagion from hospital. Travel restrictions made it difficult for people to reach out for help. But a finding of reduced emergency presentation is unlikely to reflect a lower prevalence of mental health in community. It is likely that alternative services were accessed. For example, call to mental health helplines increased by 30%. However, the surveys do show an increase in stress level, meaning that these changes do not necessarily indicate an established psychiatric disorder, but might represent psychological reactions in the face of adversity. An Australian study compared the presentation of 2019 with 2020 and found that in 2020, as compared to 19, presentations due to anxiety, panic symptoms, and social behavioral issues increased by 10%, whereas suicidality and self-harm behaviors dropped. There was decline in alcohol-related presentation due to closing of liquor shops, whereas other drug-related presentations increased. Patients with no previous psychiatric history presented with religious and spiritual delusions with hallucinatory content. Some also presented with somatic delusions of having contracted COVID infection and derealization and depersonalization. Paranoia was also frequent, and the relationship was mediated by COVID-19 news exposure. It has been well documented that confinement can lead to changes in sense of reality, perceptual distortions, hallucinations, and derealization symptoms. Symptoms were observed in individuals with no history of psychiatric disorder, and that several factors influence their occurrence: the sensory deprivation, the isolation duration, and the individual's personality traits. Lockdown-related social isolation have important psychological consequences in terms of increased psychotic and cognitive problems. Numerous countries, example China, US, UK, Italy, India, have shown a recent increase in outpatients presenting with OCD symptoms such as hoarding and washing compulsions. Lockdown measures led to buying and hoarding items such as hygiene products, flu medications, and groceries. Suspected isolated cases and those with family members working in hospitals developed obsessive compulsive symptoms such as repeated temperature checks and sterilization. There were several socio-demographic and psychosocial factors associated with mental health problems in COVID-19, such as younger age, marital status, daily wage earners, having suspected or confirmed case in family or neighborhood, comorbid physical health problems like presence of diabetes, cerebrovascular disease, and cardiovascular diseases. COVID-19 has also affected the mental health and well-being among healthcare professionals, especially among those who are working as frontline providers. As COVID-19 cases are impacting the capacities of healthcare system globally, many of the healthcare providers are working beyond their regular schedules to meet the increased demand for critical care. This makes them susceptible to anxiety, depression, burnout, and insomnia. Moreover, working without adequate TPE and other preventive measures increases the fear of contracting infection, which further raises the probability of making them vulnerable to psychiatric manifestations. Further, a lack of social support, working under stress, guilt about suboptimal care to the patient, or leaving the hospitals understaffed, or worrying about their families have resulted in critical mental health challenges among healthcare providers. In young children and adults, the pandemic and lockdown have a greater impact on emotional and social development compared to that in grown-ups. Children manifested symptoms of clinginess, increased irritability and inattention, and separation-related anxiety. The home confinement of children and adolescents is associated with uncertainty and anxiety, which is attributable to disruption in education and physical activities. Children with special needs, like those with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, learning disability, developmental delays, have shown aggravation in symptoms due to enforced restrictions and unfriendly environment. With closure of special schools and daycare centers, These children lack access to resource material and peer group interaction. This has led to regression to past behavior or relapse of symptoms. In adolescence, there has been decreased physical activity, more screen time, surfing about COVID-19, irregular sleep patterns, and less appropriate diets have led to frustration, boredom, anger, and decreased tolerance. The pandemic and lockdown has impacted everyone, be it rich or poor, old or young, in different ways. Social connections help people regulate negative emotions, cope, and remain resilient in times of stress, whereas isolation and loneliness has worsened the burden of stressful circumstances. Thank you. Now I invite Dr. Neil for presenting the first case.
Hello. So with this background, I, Dr. Neil Pawar, first year psychiatry resident, would like to present my first case. So a 25-year-old male, married, Hindu, Hindi speaking, well-standard educated, a newspaper distributor by profession, and a resident of Mumbai, was brought to OPD with complaints of suspiciousness, fearfulness, hearing of voices inaudible to others, muttering to self, aggressive, abusive, and assaultative behavior, and a history of substance use. Patient was apparently all right a month ago when he collected his payment from a flat in a building, after which the security guard told him that the family was COVID positive. He became apprehensive about the incident to such an extent that he didn't allow anyone to touch the 500 rupee note, which he collected from that house. After a few days, his family members noticed that he became suspicious and fearful towards the neighbors that they are Chinese people. His father reported that some BMC employees were fogging insecticides in their area, to which he interpreted as those are Chinese men and trying to harm him and his family members by spraying something. He feared that Chinese men have implanted electro-radio devices or cameras in his house to keep a watch over him and control his activities. He also heard voices inaudible to others, which were commanding him to go there, to get up, thereby interrupting his daily activities. He felt helpless and sought help from his society by talking to a television screen. Family members noticed disturbance in sleep and appetite. He would also become agitated and aggressive towards the family members on trivial issues, and also assaulted the family members due to an argument. He also damaged the household things, for which he was tied in his house for 2 days and later brought to KEM hospital. There was a history of nicotine use since 5 to 6 years in the form of chewing tobacco 1 packet per day and smoking 1 to 2 cigarettes per day. Last consumption was on the day of admission. Cannabis consumption was there since 1 year in the form of 1 to 2 joints per day. Last consumption was 20 days before admission. There was no history suggestive of head injury or seizure disorder, no history suggestive of depression, bipolar disorder, OCD, phobia, or anxiety disorder. Also, there was no history suggestive of major medical or surgical illness. Family history was not significant. Birth history was within normal limits. He was average in his studies. There was no history of ADHD or any conduct traits. He was third among the 4 siblings. Social and financial support was judged as fair. Pre-morbidly, he was irresponsible, quick to temper, had poor frustration tolerance, and was stubborn. On mental status examination, patient was conscious, cooperative, communicative, fearful most of the time, was hypervigilant. Rapport was established with ease. Eye-to-eye contact was initiated but not maintained. Active attention was arousable but ill-sustained. Passive attention was increased. Mood was fearful. Affect was congruent to the mood. Speech showed continuous, coherent, and irrelevant most of the time. Thought showed loosening of association, derailments, tangentiality, and circumstantiality. There was delusion of persecution, delusion of reference, and delusion of control. He had auditory hallucinations, second person in nature, which were commanding and derogatory, male voice, mostly of a middle-aged man. Concept and judgment were impaired. Intelligence was judged average. Memory was intact. Insight was judged as poor, and he was diagnosed as case of schizophrenia with nicotine and cannabis use disorder. Patient was admitted. His PAN score on day 1 showed positive score as 28, negative at 14, and general symptoms at 21. All routine investigations were done which were within normal limits. Tablet haloperidol was started at 10 mg and was later up titrated to 25 mg. Tablet triaxiphenyl was started at 4 mg, later up titrated to 6 mg. Tablet lorazepam was started at 2 mg, later it was decreased to 1 mg and later stopped. In the due course, 6 ECTs were given. Psychoeducation of caregivers about schizophrenia and substance use disorder was done. Patient was also psychoeducated about substance use disorder. He showed 90% improvement in the wards. His positive score in the PAN score list came down to 10, negative was 9, and general symptoms were 16. On follow-up, patient showed 95% improvement. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Anuradha for the next case.
Thank you, Dr. Neil. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Dr. Anuradha Rathod, first year psychiatry resident at KAM Hospital. I'll be moving forward with the second case. An 18-year-old unmarried male, BSc first year dropout, Hindu, Marathi speaking, resident of Mumbai, presented with his father to the psychiatry OPD with complaints of repetitive, recurrent thoughts that his hands are contaminated and urge to wash his hands repeatedly, increased irritability and restlessness when unable to do so, with occasional sadness of mood, increased since 1 month, and total duration of illness being 1 year. The patient was apparently all right around 1 year back when he saw COVID-19 pandemic news on the TV. He felt worried about getting infected and began taking due precautions. In May 2020, the patient's father contracted COVID-19 infection, while patient and the rest of the family tested negative and were placed in home quarantine. While in quarantine, the patient was overwhelmed with thoughts about his father's illness, and he often used to search online about COVID-19 infection and became more and more downbeat with the results. The patient's father was admitted for 10 days, recovered, and returned home. Since then, the patient had gradually increased preoccupation with his hands being dirty and began washing his hands with detergent for more than 5 minutes, 2 to 3 times per hour, and also using hand sanitizer 5 to 10 times per hour without even touching any object. He realized that the thoughts are his own and are excessive, unwanted, and irrational, but could not stop them from coming to his mind. There was compulsive behavior in the form of taking bath for around 1 hour, which was previously less than 15 minutes, after returning home from outside, and feeling distressed when he could not bathe due to any reason. This was accompanied by occasional sadness, which was non-persistent and non-pervasive. The patient had impaired concentration and academic decline in the form of dropout from his BSc graduate course last year. He also had disturbed sleep in the form of initial insomnia due to repetitive thoughts about how the virus could have potentially entered the home that day and what more precautions he could take to safeguard himself and his family. The patient had social impairment in the form of insisting on staying inside the house, refusing to meet neighbors and friends, even with all due precautions in place. He had avoidant behavior in the form of refusing to run errands in fear of contracting infection and would not allow family members to go out too. Eventually, the family consulted a private psychiatrist who prescribed medication in the form of capsule fluoxetine 40 milligram, which led to around 50 to 60% improvement in intrusive thought of contamination. The patient turned non-compliant after 3 months, which led to exacerbation of symptoms in the form of excessive hand washing, and thus presented to KM Psychiatry OPD. There was no history suggestive of depression, psychosis, mania, phobia, panic attacks, or suicidal ideation. There was no history of free-floating anxiety, tics, preoccupation with appearance, hair pulling, hoarding, skin picking, or impulsive behavior. No history of fever, sore throat, and sudden onset irritability. No past history of any psychiatric, medical, or surgical illness. There was a family history of anancastic traits in the father, him being extremely orderly, inflexible, and a perfectionist. The patient was born of non-consanguineous marriage and was a full-term normal vaginal delivery with normal developmental milestones. He is the second son of parents and a bright student being studious, who got first class in his board exams. Due to inability to study due to lack of concentration, he had dropped out of the first year of his BSc graduate course last year. The social and financial support are fair. By temperament, the patient was introverted, fair-tempered, hardworking, a perfectionist, orderly, and responsible. On mental status examination, the patient was conscious, cooperative, communicative, well-kept, keeping his hands clasped together and to himself. Eye-to-eye contact was initiated but not maintained. Attention active was arousable and sustained, while passive was within normal limits. Mood was anxious and reactive, while affect was of distressed quality, congruent to the mood, appropriate to surroundings, with normal range. Speech was continuous, coherent, and relevant, and disorder of thought possession in the form of obsessive thoughts of contamination was found. No perceptual abnormalities, and the patient was oriented to time, place, and person, with concepts, memory, and judgment being intact, intelligence being average, and insight graded good. The patient was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder with good insight. Patient was assessed and scale was applied. The score came to be 28 in moderate to severe category. The patient was started on capsule fluoxetine 20 mg and tablet clomipramine 25 mg. The patient had side effects like dizziness and constipation, after which clomipramine was stopped and capsule fluoxetine was optimized to 40 mg. Exposure and response prevention therapy was initiated, in which Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation was taught to the patient, and the patient was taught about hierarchy construction. 2 sessions have been conducted until now. Thought-stopping techniques were also taught to the patient, and he was advised about engaging in his hobbies like cricket and reflecting on future academic prospects. Psychoeducation of family members was done regarding proper compliance and need for follow-up. The patient is currently under regular OPD follow-up, showing 40 to 50% improvement in the form of decreased hand washing with Vibox score 23. And also he's thinking of joining JEE preparation classes in the near future. Thank you. Now I welcome Dr. Priyanka for the next case.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Priyanka, second year psychiatry resident, will be presenting case 3 for the session. 24-year-old male patient, unmarried, BCom graduate, working as a cashier in Reliance Fresh, Hindu, Marathi speaking, resident of Mumbai, came with the complaints of episodes of ghabrahat with palpitations, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, feeling of choking, fear of dying, and disturbed sleep. Episodes lasting for 15 to 20 minutes, occurring 3 to 4 times a week. Complaints were present since 2 months. Patient was apparently all right 2 months back when he witnessed one incident where one of his friend's father contracted a COVID infection. His friend struggled a lot to find a bed in the hospital for his father. They were running around from one hospital to other. Eventually, they got the bed after struggling for almost 2 days. His friend was working as a police officer. After this incident, patient started thinking that being at such a good position, if his friend struggled finding a bed, what if something happens to me or my family? I will not be able to help them out in this crisis. He would continuously think about the same and would get anxious about going out, thinking he will get the COVID infection and same he will spread to his family members. After approximately 20 days of this incident, when he was at work, he had a sudden episode of ghabrahat, palpitations, breathlessness, chest discomfort, and choking sensation, and fear of dying. He was immediately shown to the general practitioner nearby. Episode subsided after 15 to 20 minutes without any medications. ECG, blood pressure, routine blood investigations were done as reported by the informant, all normal. Next day, similar episode again happened when he went to the market. Episode subsided by its own after 15 to 20 minutes. After this episode, patient would remain anxious throughout the day. That similar episode will happen again any time in the day. There was an occupational impairment in the form that he avoided going to his job. There were frequent absenteeism in the job. He would have 3 to 4 episodes in a week. After that, he started having similar episodes at home also. Frequency of the episodes increased since last 15 days. He started believing that something big has happened to him. Sleep disturbances was there in the form of he would sleep for only 3 to 4 hours with frequent awakenings in between. Patient presented with a similar episode in a KEM casualty and then referred to the Department of Psychiatry. There was no past history of the similar complaints, no history suggestive of persistent pervasive sadness of mood, psychosis, OCD, mania, no history of hypertension, diabetes, TB, thyroid pathology, cardiopulmonary conditions, no history of any substance. There's a family history of depression in the mother, and she is under treatment from the Department of Psychiatry in the area. Pre-morbidly, patient was social, adjustable. He welcomes the responsibility. Anxious and neurotic traits were present, fair-tempered, but he keeps on brooding about the small things. On mental status examination, patient was conscious, cooperative, communicative, well-kept, rapport was established, mood he conveys to be anxious, affect was congruent to mood, reactive, appropriate to surrounding, speech was continuous, coherent, relevant. In a thought, anticipatory anxiety was present, causing avoidance. There was no perceptual abnormalities. He was oriented to time, place, and person. Concept, memory, judgment, all were intact. Intelligence was average. Insight is graded as grade 5. Patient was diagnosed as panic disorder with agoraphobia. Patient managed on OPD basis. He started on tablet clonazepam 0.25 mg TDS, tablet escitalopram 5 mg HS. Patient and family members psychoeducated regarding the illness. CBT started, cognitive errors such as catastrophic thinking, probability overestimation identified, and cognitive restructuring done in the sessions. Patient was advised relaxation and taught progressive muscle relaxation, deep breathing. On follow-up, patient was better. Frequency of panic attacks decreased to once a week. He eventually started going to his job. Tablet clonazepam was tapered and kept as was. Thank you, everyone. Now I invite Dr. Parul for presenting the case 4 of the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Priyanka. This is Dr. Parul Uttarwar, first year psychiatry resident from KEM Hospital, and I'll be presenting the fourth and the last case for the day. A 70-year-old married male, educated up to grade 7, retired mill worker, Hindu, Marathi speaking, resident of Mumbai, presented with his son to our psychiatry OPD with the chief complaints of irritability, irrelevant talks, aggressive, abusive, and assaultive behavior, suspiciousness that he's being conspired against and cheated, disturbed sleep, and exacerbation of symptoms since 10 months, with total duration of illness being 1.5 years. The patient was apparently all right 1.5 years back when family members noticed changes in his behavior in the form of anger and irritability over trivial issues. Pre-morbidly, the patient was a very jolly, sociable, and outgoing person. He often engaged himself in religious meetings, senior citizen clubs, and also volunteered for numerous community service activities. Following the initiation of lockdown due to COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the patient was unable to mingle with his friends or carry forward his social activities subsequent to the imposition of lockdown restrictions. Remaining restricted at home, he would become highly irritable because of the same. He also started experiencing disturbed sleep and suspiciousness that he is being conspired against by his tenants living in the neighboring flat. Concurrently, the patient also had progressive diminution of vision and was advised cataract surgery by the ophthalmologist at the eye hospital. Over the course of 6 months, the patient experienced an exacerbation of these symptoms in the form of repeated anger outbursts, a strong belief against the tenants that they have deceitfully taken ownership of his flat and are trying to harm him and his family members. Following this, the tenants were forcibly removed by him from the flat. He also had significant loss of vision at this time. However, he refused to get operated. He had irrelevant talks Ophthalmologists at the eye hospital have taken out my eyeballs. The tenants will kill me and my son. I would rather die by getting myself infected with COVID-19 before they come and try to kill me. He would also try to lick the walls and doors of his house in order to contract COVID-19 infection. And in order to protect him, his wife would have to repeatedly clean the walls every single day. The patient had his first episode 40 years ago when he left his first wife and married another woman who was his maternal uncle's daughter. The marriage was consanguineous in nature. He soon started believing that his new wife was unfaithful to him, and his marriage was influenced by black magic, following which his second wife left him. During that time, the patient had anger outbursts, irritability, and muttering to self. He also had socio-occupational impairment in the form of decreased interaction with other people and not working at all. The entire episode lasted for 6 to 7 months and resolved after seeking Ayurvedic treatment. The patient reunited with his first wife post this episode and was apparently all right until the recent episode in lockdown. There was no history suggestive of depression, bipolar disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, phobia, panic disorder in past or present. There was no history suggestive of any memory disturbances, no history of head injury or epilepsy, and no history of any substance use. The patient is a known case of diabetes mellitus and hypertension since 8 years, and there was no family history of any psychiatric illness. The patient experienced sleep disturbances, but his appetite and bowel bladder movement was found to be adequate. The patient's social and financial support was fair, and pre-morbidly, he was found to be well-adjusted, hardworking, extrovert, gregarious, and jovial. On mental status examination, the patient was conscious, minimally cooperative, communicative, but hostile. Rapport was established with difficulty. Active attention was aroused, but ill-sustained. Passive attention was increased. Mood was irritable, and affect was congruent to mood, reactive, and inappropriate to surrounding. Speech was continuous, coherent, and irrelevant at times. Content of thought showed delusion of persecution. No perceptual abnormalities, concepts were impaired, the patient was oriented to time, place, and person, memory was intact, judgment was impaired, the intelligence was found to be average, and insight was poor. The patient was diagnosed as a case of paranoid schizophrenia. The patient was assessed, all routine investigations were sent, chest X-ray and ECG was also done. Although the patient did not present with memory disturbances, to rule out dementia, mini mental state examination was applied and the score was found to be 26 out of 30. The patient was started on tablet 25 mg, which was eventually increased to 50 mg on follow-up. Psychoeducation of the caregivers about the illness was also done. On follow-up, the patient was 40% better with respect to behavioral disturbances, and the patient's sleep and appetite had also improved. Thank you. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Manish for summing up all the 4 case presentations.
Thank you, Dr. Parul. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Manish, going to present summary of all cases. We have presented 4 cases with variety of clinical features and diagnosis. However, they found to have a common trend related to COVID-19 pandemic. As you can see in this slide, the 2 cases which presented with paranoia and suspiciousness, etc., for varying duration, clinically both were diagnosed as schizophrenia. Another case presented with excessive hand washing was diagnosed as obsessive compulsive disorder. Another case which presented, the 4th one case showing severe anxiety features, was diagnosed as panic disorder. Now, as you see in this slide, their premorbid personalities were found to be varied expectantly. Patient with OCD, So perfectionist personality traits remorbidly, while sensitivity to criticism was found in case with panic disorder. We also tried to find out the risk factors. We found patients with schizophrenia had substance use, etc., while OCD have family history and panic disorder had high risk personality traits. As you can see, all of them have a similar precipitating factor related to COVID-19 pandemic, ranging from contact with COVID-19 patient to death in family due to COVID-19 and social side effect of lockdown. In view of this, though the management of all patients concentrated on primary psychiatric diagnosis, like the patient with schizophrenia needed to be treated with antipsychotics and ECTs, patients with OCD and panic disorder treated with SSRI and therapy. The COVID-19 impact was also addressed in the form of psychoeducation and psychosocial interventions. To elaborate on this, I would like to invite Dr. Manmeet Kaur to final take-home message. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon again. Now, lastly, the take-home message. How to mitigate mental health effects of COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 impact warrants attention. Community monitoring and mental health screening could be implemented in selected groups, or digital health could be used for population-wide screening. Resources have been diverted from other areas to COVID-19 response. Vulnerable populations, including patients with mental health issues, have been disproportionately affected by this. Healthcare system should anticipate an increase in unmet mental health needs in these vulnerable populations and promote adaptations that narrow gaps in access to care. Recognize and address mental health challenges as a disaster management strategy, meaning a shift from curative to preventive aspects of mental health during natural disasters, wars, or pandemics. Thank you all for your patient listening. Now I invite our professor and HOD, Dr. Ajita Nayak ma'am, to say a few words.
So thank you, everybody. And all that I would like to say in the end is that we have our patients. They are trying to cope with this major disaster which has come suddenly. And it is acting as a precipitating factor. It is coloring the phenomenology. If you see, the delusions or the behavior seems to be colored by COVID-19 pandemic. So rather than, looking at it as a reaction only to COVID, we need to diagnose and treat. Of course, the management needs to include removing the myths, misconception about COVID-19 and counseling them about that. But ultimately, what we have realized is there is a major psychiatric illness which gets precipitated and we need to treat. Thank you. Over to ma'am.
It's a very interesting case presentation. I think paranoia is a trend in the world now. Basically, everybody is suspicious about China since the COVID-19 has come, and people really are suspicious till date. China is a very strong country, and people generally being suspicious about a strong country who creates query COVID is an important issue. I think it is even in national level, the atmosphere is very paranoia with Pegasus in the picture. I think everybody is suspecting everybody. The states are suspecting the other states, and some states are saying that if other states knows about us, how are we going to survive? So this is the season with COVID, which is of disturbance in the mental health with uncertainties and insecurities. What it was introduced by Dr. Kranti when she said public health emergencies definitely will have a very, very strong impact, on the mental health of the people. I think this is where what Dr. Ajita Nayak said, that henceforward, when we look at the patients, we have to look at this COVID linkage and the mental health perspective in a more serious way. I was otherwise interested, Dr. Nayak, about two things. Basically, what is happening to our old patients, who are already mentally ill during this particular season, and the helpline which you were running, which was for the common people. Basically, what was a kind of response or complaints there? These are the two important issues I had in mind.
No, so the fear of infection, mainly for the non-COVID patients, the helpline which we are running, which is 24/7, and where people can call in, the fear of infection had increased. All of them wanted to know how to protect themselves. So those calls were coming. So that anxiety, how to deal with. And another thing was the lockdown effects. So a lot of people were calling up for internet addiction and porn addiction. There were these increases. This was a significant finding which we have observed. So of course the depression was there, the anxiety was there related to COVID. But interestingly was this lockdown related financial problems, of course, domestic violence, but internet addiction and porn addiction, and especially among teenagers.
So I think we can open it up for the question by audience, or some comments by audience, or something which they want to narrate quickly.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Question to all the eminent psychiatrists over here. My question is, what will be the impact of COVID-19 on young children when they come back to school? And what are the kind of signs as mental health professionals should be looking at? We should be looking at.
Should I take this, ma'am?
Yeah, that will be good. Yes.
Yeah. So, no, Abhi, first of all, whether to send them back to school. Parents are still wary, and we have that third wave looming. So, if and when, and which I think may happen, is when we send them to school, first of all those COVID appropriate behaviors and the restrictions.
Yeah, but will this COVID-19 have an impact on children after it is over and done with? Like, will we be looking at traces in children, or will it be like a long forgotten story, kind of like the Spanish flu? That's what I'm asking. Like, will there be repercussions on children? Of course, if children are exposed to.
You're mute. Ajita, you're mute. We can't hear you.
Yes, Dr. Ajita.
How long have you mute? Okay. No, so long story after a long time. But now there is an impact. And as Ina was mentioning, children are comfortable at home. They are enjoying these online classes or enjoying not studying. Lot of them are happy with no school, no exams, etc., etc. Okay, the impact is they have changed. We are going to have a generation which is going to be different. They are going to be what we have talked to children and all, what their interaction is all now through mobiles and net and social media. They are preferring living in that virtual world. Whether that will cause a psychiatric problem, that's another thing, because they are already living in a virtual world for a long time. So the comorbidity of psychiatric illness, we don't know, but their functioning is definitely going to change, which we as a generation may not like it. But if they can cope with it, may happen. But yes, may get increase in, and which we are finding, there is an increase in violence, aggression among children.
Yes, and what I feel is, how people, our education system is going to prepare, for this particular change, how they will take the mental health of the children into consideration while they, will go for opening the schools. I think that also will be a very important issue eventually. But it is very important. I think we have to look at the national scenario. NIMHANS has started the helpline at a national level, which they advertise on the radio and TV. Today there was a declaration of helpline for the domestic violence by in the cabinet by MP Smriti Irani. So I think there are some impacts and some awareness and some measures which are being taken at the national level, and I hope this continues. People should have the long-term vision of the mental health pandemic which we are going to face eventually, and this is a very important consideration. Meanwhile, I'll tell you, I had 2 cases in between. Very interesting, because they were pregnant, and when they realized they are pregnant, they didn't want to go ahead with the pregnancy simply because they were scared of that whether there will be infection for a child with the COVID, and there will be long-term impact. So that kind of thing which were also are happening, and this is a vulnerable group, basically women and pregnant women. These are some of the important issues. Maybe we will learn little more. Meanwhile, we do not know. I think if anybody of the PG students who are so well read, the issue of this virus directly affecting brain. So far we are looking out for the preventive measures and how they are affecting, the mental health. But there are ongoing. People are doing research on this, because virus generally will affect the brain cells also. We probably have to wait and watch for some of these effects eventually.
Madam, may I say something? This is Jannavi Kedare from Nair Hospital.
Yes, Jannavi. Yes.
So I think what we have been observing is that across all age groups, there is psychopathology coming up. Means beginning with school children, adults, women as a special class, as you very rightly pointed out, pregnant women and lactating women mainly, and especially even the geriatric age group. These are some of the, and people who are already mentally ill. These are the populations which are definitely affected, I feel. Children also, there is an impact of online schooling on children, especially children who have disorders like ADHD, autistic spectrum disorder, learning disabilities. These are the children who are definitely suffering. Even amongst other children, attending online schooling has been pretty stressful for them for various reasons, including socio-cultural reasons about availability and accessibility of online schooling, where only one device is available and there are 3 siblings, or connectivity issues are there, and so on and so forth. So such socio-cultural issues have also affected children. In women, especially in lactating mothers and pregnant women, the fear of COVID and consequences of COVID have really scared them, no doubt about it. And in geriatric population, mainly movement being restricted and not being able to mingle in the society and missing out on their social interactions has affected a large number of geriatric population, leading to a lot of anxieties and depression, which we are regularly seeing in our OPD also. I feel there is a range of disorders that we are seeing, and in a very excellent presentation, we saw schizophrenia, we saw anxiety, we saw OCD also, and yes, of course, vulnerability on the part of the human being. Whenever there is a stressor of this kind or of this magnitude is bound to be bound to interact and will precipitate a mental illness, no doubt about it. In post-COVID OPD also, we see that we have a post-COVID OPD in our hospital where even our department people go, and we have observed that whoever follows up there, many of them are still suffering from anxiety, even though they've had COVID, say last year, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. And I think so it is going to have really long-lasting effects. And we will have to deal with a variety of problems so far as mental health of people is concerned. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Anybody else? Very nice cases, and it's a good range of cases that really stimulates us to think about it. So, anybody else wants to say? Yes.
I think anybody could unmute themselves and
Yes.
Hello, I'm Dr. Suvarna Shinde. I wanted to highlight one point. May I?
Yes, please go ahead.
In my practice, I came across a couple of patients who started meditation. And following meditation, some people doing Vipassana, they had sensory issues like tactile hallucinations. So I just wanted to know, has anybody come across cases who have started meditation following this kind of hallucinations, because of which they had to stop the meditation practice? All this following COVID lockdown.
That's a nice question, Suvarna, because in Vipassana, especially or any in-depth meditation, generally vulnerable people will get sensory deprivation effect, and maybe psychosis can get precipitated. I am sure in Vipassana they generally do not advise Vipassana meditation for those who have issues with the mental health or have already known mental illness, because it precipitates, it's not just hallucinations, but it can precipitate full-fledged psychosis. I mean, there are, I mean, in Vipassana centers also there are doctors who generally would like to evaluate the person if there is history of mental health disturbances or frank mental disorders.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, Dr. Deepak Rathod here.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Rathod.
One thing I noticed particularly, as earlier what you used to see, the retired people would come and they say, "Arey, hum to retired hai, kam fees lo," and they would not spend on few of the very important things also. The same phenomena is now being observed across the population, in the middle-aged people also, and little bit middle-aged to our elderly people. Even they are neglecting important spendings, important investigations, important referrals also they are neglecting. And even they are neglecting important prescriptions. And the tendency, maybe a part of that anxiety and that hoarding like tendency is increasing, that I should save the money for the very difficult and crisis time. So that is happening in many of the families because of the economic effect of the COVID. That is very vast. Lot of people have reduced income also, plus uncertainty in the spending, how much they will have to spend if they get admitted or some family member becomes ill. So that is making their life, though they may have some money to spend, they may be having in the banks or something they can spend, but their prioritization of the funds, it has totally changed. They are not willing to spend the money on a proper thing, which earlier it was very usual. इसके लिए खर्चा करना है तो करना ही है. Like that, they are keeping the money aside. Any observation by you people? Because this is spending, this is making, this is resulting in the side effects in their proper quality of life. So whatever thing we have to spend there and there itself. So it cannot wait. If you spend it later on, it will not give the much good result. That is being seen. Economic insecurity. Yeah.
Uncertainty about the future.
Yeah.
Leading to a loss of hope and pessimistic attitude.
And we cannot label them as clinically something. They are not basically clinically affected, or we cannot label them as ill people. But then the tendency has crept in so deeply that is affecting.
No, so where it is crossing the line, whether it's just an adjustment disorder or it is just a normal reaction. So new normal, when we are talking, what is the new normal? Is it normal to react like that? Is it normal to get little pessimistic, loss of hope, or we are going to diagnose it? That's a call we have to take.
It's very true. Yeah, I think the financial loss is a lot during this pandemic. I keep listening to this CNBC channel, and it's scary looking at a kind of loss. Industries are shut down. People have lost the job. So right now, yes, I mean, what Dr. Nayak said is correct, that it is a huge financial insecurity, and we really do not know how long this will go. So people definitely are more in a panic status, though it is not a very pathological, but it is panic basically from where money will come if there is much more more disaster, if we have to face. So we have to wait and watch as it is a new normal. Maybe people feel that securing more money or securing whatever they have may be better for their future. I think the government has to learn from the mental health perspective. It is giving a lot of direction in terms of a new normal or economy or industry, small scale industries, and we really have to look at that. We hope the mental health perspective gets due importance in the national health policies eventually.
Madam, may I say something?
Yes, please.
Actually, what has happened, we were just recovering from COVID-19 because third wave is due, people are saying like that. And now this Konkan floods.
Yes.
So they are giving another opportunity actually to learn through the entire experience, because I just happened to listen to an interview of one small girl, 8-year-old, and she had witnessed how the floods had occurred and how the entire house had swept away.
Yeah.
So this PTSD, the anxieties, depression, all this financial insecurity, what we are talking about, is it's going to happen because the disasters are going to happen, and we have to have the resilience.
Yes. Very true. I heard the girl you mentioned. Yeah, it was very, very touchy what she said. So I think it is true. We probably all have to look at the future perspective in terms of our day-to-day living, and how are we going to survive in general, all the country or all the whole world, because the poorer people are becoming more poorer. This is what they say. I think there is some statistic, if somebody remembers, the middle class people have got now more poorer. That's what is happening. So people from their economic status are coming down, and that is where the whole insecurity is there. And nobody knows when this will get corrected. It will take a lot of time. Some people say 10 years, some people say 25 years. So we have to really wait and watch. But here we are, changing for new normal, more mental health problems. And I think this is a very apt presentation by the department, to get focused on some important issues. Even I think PGs who are going through their learning through this particular period are going to learn more about pandemic mental health than my generation or the previous generation. I think they will be more sensitive about some of these issues.
Thank you, madam.
Yes. So anybody else, any younger member of this group want to comment, want to say something?
Sayan, whole group I can see sitting there. Anyone? Sagar, Hina, Nidesh?
Yes, Hina, you want to say something?
Ma'am, you need to unmute.
Unit. It's I've actually been sitting here and just thinking like this is like my unit. And I think when Janvi ma'am came, I was like, that's Ajita ma'am, Janvi ma'am, and I was the lecturer back then. No, excellent presentation. I think yes, these are difficult times, and yes, I think new normal and how the way we are going to adjust. Children, I think, probably have also suffered a lot, but I also believe that children are extremely resilient as well. We also in our OPD have come across a lot of anxiety. I've seen a couple of people who are working in airline industries, and when the airports and all were shut, so issues regarding employment, and once everything resumed, then again the whole thing that we would again be traveling, so are we at risk and all. So yes, I think the pandemic is something which has taken a severe toll on everybody's mental health, including healthcare workers. Yes, that's about it. And once again, thank you, Ajita ma'am. Thank you once again for an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank
you. Thank you, everyone. I am Dr. Priyanka Mahajan. I am the Secretary of Bombay Psychiatric Society. Sorry, Avinash sir could not make it to this meeting today. So I'm here on behalf of the entire Bombay Psychiatric Society, thanking the entire unit of Ajita ma'am, Shubhangi ma'am to be here to chair the session. We all got to learn a lot about the challenges which we have faced in the last 1.5 years. And it has actually changed the life of everyone, including the healthcare worker, as Hina ma'am just mentioned, because we are seeing a lot of mental issues in the people coming up, the existing patients, as there was a question, what is the change in the existing patients? I think initial phase of pandemic, what we faced was that I'm working at Masina Hospital, but the patients could not reach the hospital. Initially, the wards were shut, the hospitals were shut, and it was only operating at COVID. So the ongoing patients could not get medications, and there were relapses during that phase. They were very scared to go to KEM and Sion because they were the hotspots of COVID, and everyone felt, going to a hospital would mean contracting an infection. So people went into a lot of relapses also back then. Situations have improved over the time, I would say that. And yes, due to all the stressors and turmoil which is going on, I think the best part is people have started acknowledging mental health in a better way. The government, as Shubhangi ma'am just said, they have also started to focus on mental health. They are trying to start on the helplines. Even NIMHANS is trying to do everything. So I would say the outlook of people have changed for mental health now. Earlier, I think it was something different, but with COVID coming in, we have a lot of patients who are, coming up with their issues more openly and not scared to talk about it, because the media has, the radio channels, they've all promoted mental health in a very big way. So if there are no further questions, I would like to thank everyone for being a part of this meeting. As Hina ma'am just pointed out about the mental health burden in the caregivers and the healthcare workers. So on behalf of BPS, I would want to make an announcement that on the 1st August, 29th August, and 12th September, BPS in collaboration with Ariadne Labs, which are from the Harvard University, and Lifebox, which is an NGO which helps people, we are coming up with a workshop which is advanced skill development for healthcare workers during crisis. So it is being held on the 3 weekends. So one workshop over 1 weekend will be a comprehensive. So we plan to take 3 batches of people, 20 each, and we expect to train the healthcare workers, especially the psychiatrists right now, to learn about a few things, how to manage stress, how to manage loss and resilience building. And after we train the psychiatrist or the residents or the people who are practicing in mental health, we would expect them to go and help the mental health care workers in, sorry, not the mental health care worker, the frontline workers in the places they are, collaborated with. So this is the next upcoming program which is coming in from BPS on 1st August, 29th August, and 12th September. I will be circulating an email with a Google form. So people who are interested, kindly please enroll for the workshop. And thank you everyone for being a part of this afternoon. We all had great time learning. Thank you, Ajita ma'am. Thank you, Shubhangi ma'am. And thank you everyone for coming and listening to this interesting clinical meet.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.